Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers. Tiki here, and welcome to another tropical and tubular edition of the So You Want to Be an Imagineer Historical Retrospective. This time covering Season 9. I meant to have this up a couple days ago, but when I started doing research for this season, I realized that there's a lot more elements to it and a lot more that I need to cover than I really remember. I thought this would be a pretty straightforward retrospective, but yeah, I was dead wrong. This is a season of quite a few drastic changes to the game, and I feel like it's one of two seasons, the other being Season 3, that at its core is just kind of fundamentally flawed in a way. Season 3, obviously, the big fundamental flaw was Light Tech and his big feud with Basket Buddy and favoring Mad About Mickey. The big flaw about Season 9 was that I tried way too hard as the Game Master to force-feed strategy into the game. This was just coming off of my Season 8 Mastermind run, and that was questionable in itself how much of a positive effect it had in the game. And yeah, right off the bat, I did something that I'll probably never do again. And before even the first project got posted, I announced what the final project and the semifinals were going to be. I did this just so that everyone could kind of be on a more even playing field, but yeah, it just obviously takes away a lot of the suspense, so I'm not planning on doing that again. But I announced that the semifinals project was going to be based on the TV show Lost. This is a project that I've been wanting to do for a long time in the run of the game. You know, it's like people still think it's an odd thing to base a project around a TV show, and yeah, for the most part, it kind of is. I still, to this day, maintain that Lost would actually make a terrific attraction at a Disney park, but I digress. I'll get to that more when we get to that. And then the final project, I announced that there was definitely going to be a creative element to it, but the main element to the final project was going to be laying out your strategic game. I mentioned 3 elements of So You Want to Be an Imagineer that kind of like in the vein of Survivor's Outwit, Outplay, and Outlast, I feel that you need to really do well in this game. You need social skills, especially in the wake of team-based gameplay, as Cole will attest to. You need to be able to work with people, to make compromises, to not necessarily always have your ideas be the ideas that come to fruition. Then you need a good strategic sense about yourself. You need to know, like, what your position is in the team, how you can advance yourself, how you can use the special powers if they come to you. And finally, obviously, you need the creative game, because you really can't get to the finals and So You Want to Be an Imagineer without having some sort of a creative game. I don't really think the concept of a goat in So You Want to Be an Imagineer really exists, like just dragging a person along specifically because they suck at the game so that they're easily beatable in the finals. To tell you the truth, I was kind of when I was first aligned with Trevor A in Season 8, I kind of was looking at him as a little bit of a quote-unquote GOAT, in that I knew that I'd have no problem beating him in the finals creatively. But obviously Trevor A got eliminated way before the finals anyways, and that's really the only time I could think of that someone has tried to take a player with them, not necessarily specifically because they're less creative and less skilled than they are, because obviously with Trevor there was a lot more going on there. Like, me and him were pretty equal alliance partners. But yeah, to just drag them to the end, you know, knowing that you can fully beat them, it's not something that I really endorse about So You Want to Be an Imagineer. It's something that on Survivor has kind of become really more prevalent than I think it should be, because right now on Survivor, especially with the dawn of a Final 3, it's more about just finding the 2 worst people to bring with you, so we've really been ending up with some duds at the end of the season on Survivor. But I digress. I'm going way too into this because this is a long season and there's going to be a lot to get into, so let's jump into it with the first project. So it was as if we didn't learn enough of a lesson when it came to the mess that was involved in the Season 8 Project 1, where everyone was working in one big group. We decided, hey, yay, let's do that again. And yeah, not the best idea in the world. It certainly wasn't the most hectic thing to happen in the early game of Season 9. Yeah, we'll get to that. I bet you guys can't wait to get to that. But it definitely kind of set things off on the wrong foot. The project itself was to design a e-ticket experience, a standalone experience out of the Animaniacs. I should mention Stratusfarius soon, but Stratusfarius was our co-game master for the season. He brought actually a lot of flavor to the season that I'll get to later, but he was the one that suggested Animaniacs. I went with it. I just think Animaniacs is one of those properties where it's like you can do anything with it. There's just limited potential. Alright, I should say unlimited potential. You know, it's like there's so many characters, so many settings, just all kinds of zaniness and wackiness. I thought it was a perfect setup to do a big group project around. The only problem is only about half the cast was even remotely familiar with Animaniacs. It was pretty much split down the middle. It was like half the people had no idea what to do. Half the people were big fans of Animaniacs, so they were kind of controlling the project. So it was really an uneven start. And unfortunately, the project itself did not nearly reach the levels of... did not nearly reach the levels of mere Disneyland. I mean, it was a decent project, but it had some major issues with realism. Again, definitely a case of too many cooks stirring the pot. So after that, we get to Project 2. This is where 2 or 3 big things happen that really just go on to absolutely define the season. Project 2, it was pretty much the most innocent project we've ever had on So You Want to Be an Imagineer. It was to design an Imagineering-based book. I like to do multimedia-based projects like this from time to time. I think it's really interesting to see what you can come up with when you're doing something that involves Imagineering, that's not creating something that's going to be in the park. So I thought it was a really interesting subject matter. Now, this was the first and possibly only season. I don't know. We'll see if we do this again ever. It's not completely off the table. But this was the first season where I had the team leaders actually pick the teams. There was a big team pick'em. And there were... I'm not going to go through and count all the actual cast members now, because that'd just be entirely unprofessional of me. But, wait, yeah, I can. I believe there's 15 overall. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to get 3 teams of 4, and then right away I wanted to set up one full team that was going to be on Outcast Island. Outcast Island. See what I mean about there's just so many things, so many elements of the season to go over that I feel like I'm just like juggling a whole bunch of stuff all at once. It's really quite complicated. But Outcast Island, this came around right at the time that Survivor Redemption Island was airing, and before that season became just like Boston Rob literally carrying his family on his back. You know, just a blatant, just Boston Rob rigathon, basically. It was when the season actually had some interesting potential, and there were characters like Philip, and Christina Kell was still kicking around, and she found the immunity idol. It was before the season just became like, let's just let Rob steamroll over all of us. Kind of like Disney Sun did this season, apparently. But I digress. Yeah, Survivor Redemption Island, not the best Survivor season. It's typically regarded as the very worst Survivor season. So it's kind of funny that I chose this to rip off another... It's kind of funny because the past 3 seasons at this point have all been Survivor rip-offs. Fan versus Favorites, All-Stars, which, I mean, All-Stars isn't really a rip-off because other reality shows have done that before Survivor did. But Outcast Island, certainly a rip-off of Redemption Island. The thing is, I had some rules going into Outcast Island that I think would make it really interesting. It didn't quite pan out that way, but I think Outcast Island was still an interesting twist regardless. But the rules were that when you got to Outcast Island, you'd have to participate, you'd still have to do the challenges. If you didn't participate, we'd drop you, we'd eliminate you. But the people that be left, they go on to form their own team in a way, and that is exactly what I wanted. I wanted an entire team operating on Outcast Island, and at the end of the day, you'd have to be like at the center of that team in order to get back into the main game, because I was going to have people vote for who they would want to come back into Outcast Island. Based on the people who were on Outcast Island, I'd have them all send a vote for anyone except themselves. So it would be really interesting, and it'd lead to some really cool results. So, but yeah. The first thing that happened, the first really controversial thing that happened, came in the form of Walt's Vault. Another thing that I have to go over. This video, screw it, this retrospective is probably going to be 3 parts long. I mean, I wanted to get it in 2, but yeah, Outcast Island itself, there's just way too much stuff to go over, so I'm probably just going to end this video after PM Gate. But, Walt's Vault, that's something that I forgot to go over in Season 8. It was introduced in Season 8. Honestly, I don't really think it was introduced to all that good of an effect in Season 8, because the only thing it did was give me an immunity when I didn't really need it, and that's it. It didn't change the game in any way, shape, or form. But the concept of Walt's Vault, I actually really like a lot. It's kind of like Big Brother's Pandora's Box, except the stuff in the vault will actually influence the game and not in a obviously blatantly rigged way. So for starters, Adventure Blue Dude gets the first key to the vault, and I should mention Walt's Vault. The basic concept is that you have to decide whether or not you want to open it, and it could either lead to something really good or something bad, and you have to decide if you want to take the risk. In Adventure Blue Dude's case, it definitely led to something bad, because he got sent straight to Outcast Island. And that is what I wanted to use to set the tone for the whole season 4. Adventure Blue Dude, probably one of the big powerhouses in the whole cast, yeah, sent to Outcast Island right away. There's a reason I did that, and it's because I knew I needed to have at least one very solid contestant on Outcast Island in order for that twist to work out at all. So sorry, Adventure Blue Dude, but you kind of fell right into that. And yeah, so after that, the team leaders, we had 3 team leaders, Mandy and Wreath, Imagineer 2017, and Disney Sun, resurrected from the grave after his big downfall in Season 8. They all went through and did a pick'em, and look what I have! I have professionalism! Ooh, I have the names actually written down. Let's see here. Team Baxter. Team Leaders Imagineer 2017. Then we have Eskimo Kyle, Star Wars Geek, and Costa Freak. This is actually a season where we had quite a few new players that I'll have to talk about. Team Coates, we had Manny and Wreath. And then, of course, we had Monkey! Because, yeah, as has already been well established, everybody loves monkeys. And then we had Future Imagineer and Hack 21112. That's extra 1. Yeah, whatever. Hack 2112. Team Davidson. Disney Sun 1, Mickey Mania 1, D-World, and Thrill. And finally, on Team Bluth, we had Adventure Blue Dude, Disney Parks Fanatic, and the legendary Basket Buddy 101. This was Basket Buddy's first time playing since Season 4, so it was kind of a big deal. In the first project, or no, I don't even think it was the first project, I think it was just on his application, he used this piece of 3D artwork that would go on to define his gameplay in Season 10. But that made him, like, stand out. But then in Project 1, he contributed absolutely nothing, so he ended up not getting picked and sent to Outcast Island along with Disney Parks Fanatic. Disney Parks Fanatic was really just another one of those cases of, I mean, just a really early boot who really pretty much posted nothing. He's pretty insubstantial to the whole season. So yeah, Team Baxter, Team Coates, Team Davidson, Team Bluth. 3 of those teams were obviously Imagineers. Team Bluth I named after Don Bluth, who is a Disney Studios rebel. I felt that that would be a good, appropriate name for the Outcast Island team. And there we go. Here we go. So let's talk about PM Gate. This is the big event. Even after Adventure Blue Dude got sent to Outcast Island, no one could have anticipated this. It started out simple enough. It started out where I got a private message in my inbox one day. I believe it was from Man-Eating Wreath, and he said, like, yeah, I don't know what to do because there's this guy who's targeting me and I feel threatened, or I forget what the word for word what he said, but basically the gist of it was that he was starting to get paranoid about people in his own team targeting him. I replied back to him. I was like, look, man, that's part of the game, you know? It's like, you know, especially in a season where strategy is encouraged, you are going to have to worry about being targeted. So I thought I could just leave it at that. Of course, I was wrong. Throughout the day, my PM box just got flooded, like ridiculously flooded. Like, I got more private messages on this one day than I probably, you know, ever got, like, consecutively. It was ridiculous. And it all came down to one alliance and one person's attempt to break up said alliance. The alliance was between Man-Eating Wreath and Disney Sun. These two were opposing team leaders, but pre-game they struck a deal to have each other's back. They were both really powerful personalities. Man-Eating Wreath, it was his first time playing since Season 5, and he had gone on to make a really big name for himself in other ways by being the co-game master of the game. Really my definite equal when it comes to running the game. So yeah, both these players were on the radar. And then there was a player by the name of Star Wars Geek. Still around to this day, still a very good player. Yeah, I don't even still to this day know all the full 100% details of what happened. But to my knowledge, basically what started happening was Star Wars Geek would private message literally every person in the cast, make alliances with them, and then start turning those alliances against each other. It was the most elaborate, crazy strategical thing I'd ever seen. I mean, we're talking like, you know, this is something I couldn't even dream of back when I was playing Season 8. This is something like, if you were to pull this off on Survivor, you'd be a freaking genius, you know? I give a lot of props to Star Wars Geek, even though he ended up in a lot of trouble after this move. Because seriously, man, it is like the most bold and aggressive strategic play ever in the history of So You Want to Be an Imagineer, even though it didn't work out. Basically, what he was trying to do was to get an army of new players, to topple over all the returning players and give the new players a chance. In a way, no one was really thinking of this particular element at the time. Everyone was really pissed. But in a way, you could look at this as actually pretty heroic on Star Wars Geek's part. Because he saw how in the last 2 seasons, returning players really did steamroll over the competition. Fans versus favorites, All-Stars versus Wildcards. Favorites clearly won out in that battle. All-Stars clearly won out on that battle. He wanted to give the game just a little more of an equal opportunity. And I can't say that's a bad thing at all. It's just how he went about doing it. Yeah, I mean, this is not something that in my wildest imagination I could have pictured happening. But basically, by midday on this one particular day, by midday, the game had just come to a full and complete standstill. It was a couple days into the project. Everyone was pretty well and good working on their books. But yeah, I mean, the work just stopped. Everyone was in an utter panic over the actions of this one player. And the thing is, Star Wars Geek, he actually tried to pin the blame on Future Imagineer. To this day, I'm still not exactly sure if Future Imagineer has anything to do with it at all. But yeah, it came down to the point where, I mean, you'd think that hypothetically this is exactly what I would want, promoting strategy so heavily. But the last thing I want is for people to feel unsafe and insecure and just overall, like, not have a good time playing the game. And to just not be working at all. That is absolutely the last thing I want from the game. So, yeah, I basically just said, look, you know, if this doesn't get sorted out, we might just have to cancel the whole season right here, because this is just a train wreck that's happening right now. And I basically just called for the person responsible to come clean. And I said, you know, we're not going to judge you for it or anything. We're not going to look down on you. And so, by basically just a process of elimination, we all pretty much determined that Star Wars Geek was behind it. And yeah, the reaction was very mixed. I was trying to give Star Wars Geek some props for making the bold move, but I mean, people just weren't having it. People were pissed at what he was trying to do. I think in retrospect, like I said, it was a little more heroic than it might have came off as, because he was trying to give the new players a shot. But yeah, I mean, he was a pretty big villain. He had a big negative stigma attached to him after that. So, in the midst of all this, Mickey Mania 1, who is one of my most promising new players, also drops out, and that was sad. And yeah, the book projects came in as normal, but the season really wasn't the same after that. I mean, you know, we tried to push on, but there was just this air of, oh my god, excuse me, this air of just, you know, just, it just, PM Gate, it just hung over the whole season like a freaking fart, you know. It was just like, it just kind of attached a negative stigma to the whole season. So that's it. I wanted to get through to the merge, but obviously I've already blabbered on for 20 plus minutes, so I'll cut this video off, and I'm just going to post all 3 parts of the Legend of Outcast Island retrospective all at once, so yeah, stay tuned for that.